I invite you to close your eyes and hold this thought and this intention in your hearts. I live each moment self-aware.
As we gently open our eyes, we sing together, Holy.
Creator of all, you are holy. I call you forth, you are holy. May my whole life become holy. from you holy. Let me not want as I am holy. I will release, for all are holy. My life is yours, holy, holy.
if that doesn't convince you to come back tonight for the concert, I'm not sure what will. It'll be, by the way, if you hadn't heard, we're having a concert at 7 o'clock here in the sanctuary with Terry and the band. And, this has been quite a week. It's been quite a week as we lead up to kicking off Fall Faith. It's been a wonderful week here in Kansas City. I noticed, Jerry, you had the Sporting Kansas City hat on. Our soccer team, Sporting Kansas City, won the U.S. Open Cup last Wednesday night. So, it's the longest-running open soccer tournament in the United States. So we're the U.S. Open Cup champions. Then the following night, our women's soccer team, FC Kansas City, they won the National Women's Soccer League Championship. And then today we've got the Royals that if they win, they've got home field advantage throughout the playoffs. So, and then there's the Chiefs. So we haven't forgot about them, but here's hoping we'll be 500 by about 3 o'clock. That's our goal for today. So it's been a wonderful week here in Kansas City, and a lot of great stuff going on. And this kickoff to Fall Faith is just another one of those great things that's happening this week. You know, I am so very excited for this Fall Faith series this year. And I'm excited because this Fall Faith series, is one of those series that it's going to be truly transformational. Now, I know we say that every year. I know that every year we stand up here and, this series is going to be the most transformational series we've ever done. But this time I mean it. And I mean it because, in my experience, when you really engage with these practices, when you really take the time to connect with the sort of spiritual teachings that we're going to be talking about over these next 6 weeks, you can't help but have your life be transformed as a result. And I'm talking about that sort of transformation that's that radical shift in our worldview. That sort of transformation that takes us from a belief that there's anything outside of us that we need to rely on, and transforms our way of understanding into knowing that everything that we could ever possibly need is right here within us. So that's the goal of this Fall Faith series. And each week what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at a different spiritual practice. A spiritual practice that you can put into place that will remind you of that truth, that will remind you of that presence of God within you. So there are a few things about transformation that it is helpful that we know. I mean, if we're going to set out to become transformed, let's just kind of understand what it is we're setting out to doing. You know, I want you to know what you're getting into before you get into it. And the first thing for us to really be aware of is that transformation, the sort of spiritual transformation that we're talking about, it's an internal process. Oftentimes it's an invisible process. It's something that we aren't really aware of that's happening. I mean, certainly we see the effects of it in the world around us, but there's sort of this catch-22 that you'll see the effects of being transformed around you, but the actual work of the transformation is internal. And if you focus your energy and your life on those external sort of rewards, on the gravy that comes with it, well, that kills this process of trying to be transformed. So that's the first thing to know, is that this is an internal process. The second thing to be aware of is that this process of transformation, it looks different for each and every one of us. It shows up differently in our lives. So the transformation that I go through can be totally different from the transformation that Kathy goes through. The transformation that Diane's going through. We can have different sort of out-picturings of what that transformation looks like, but I have found that they all sort of share the same commonality, that there's sort of a similar vein that runs through every transformative experience. And that commonality is that as we are transformed, we begin to project less and less of the beliefs that we have about the world around us onto the world. And what we end up doing is we focus more and more and more on the presence of God within us. So no matter how transformation ends up looking in your own life, know that we're all going to kind of experience that same basic common principle. We're all going to see more of God in our lives. We're all going to project less of the stuff that we use to create the world around us. And as we do that, we see that sort of radical shift in our worldview that reminds us to live originally. Living Originally, of course, is the title of our Fall Faith book this year. It's written by Robert Brummett. And for those of you that may not be familiar with Robert, Robert is one of the professors at Unity Institute. He's the one that the students all lovingly call Yoda, because he's the one that teaches all of those internal self-reflective counseling classes. Robert's the one that's responsible for ripping us into pieces and then reassembling us. So he does wonderful, wonderful work with the ministerial students. And so we're going to be studying some of those processes, some of those practices. And in his book, Living Originally, he talks about the idea of what it means to live originally. You know, I know some of you may not know me that well yet, but if you don't know this about me, I absolutely love words. I love looking at words, looking at the meanings of words, looking at the various other meanings that maybe aren't as popular today, but what a word used to mean. And then looking at what that meaning was and then seeing how we use it and seeing how that changes how we look at something or look at the world around us and how that change can affect our lives. Words have always been very powerful to me. And if you look at the word original, living originally, I think a lot of you would be like me and you just go to that sort of accepted definition for originally, that it means unique. Something new, something creative, something that we've never really experienced before. But what Robert does is he asks us to look at a different meaning for that word. He asks us to look back at the original meaning of the word originally. And the original meaning of originally actually meant that it was something that came from the source. It was something whose origin was in the original. It was of the origin of the whole. In fact, the way Robert says it is like this in the book. I'd like to just share this quote with you. Robert writes, "To live originally is to live consciously from the ever-present origin of life. It is to live from the very source of all that is." That's the goal of our Fall Faith series. That's what this 6 weeks is about. You see, it's not about me telling you that we're all going to sit together and learn how to live originally. It's about us setting out the path for you to follow. And then as together, as a community, as we follow that path, we're reminded that we're connected to the source of all that is. Our life grows. We're able to live more and more of our life from that place where we know we're connected to the source of all that is. That we no longer have to look outside of us for our happiness, for our prosperity, for our relationships, because we're connected with the source of all of that. So we'll introduce a practice each week. We'll take a look at what that practice is. We'll have a chance to work on it here in the service. We'll take time to actually practice whatever it is we're talking about. But the other step to this Fall Faith series that's so vitally important is that you have the support of your small group. And we have a small group series that's going on at the exact same time where small groups of you are going to be coming together to study and to really intensely put these practices into practice. And there is still some time to sign up for those groups. If you haven't signed up to be a part of one of the Fall Faith groups yet, it looks like there's maybe 2 groups that still have openings. So our groups are almost full, but there's still time for you to sign up and be a part of one of those. Because this sort of work really happens when you engage in that group setting. So that's what our goal is. Our goal is going to be to live originally. Let's go ahead and take a look at today's practice, today's spiritual practice. The idea of radical self-awareness. The idea of being radically self-aware. Now, at its most basic level, The idea of self-awareness means that we understand that we're a being that exists separate from other beings. And we're not the only animal that does this. Dogs can do this, cats, certainly other primates. You can put a mirror in front of them and they realize, hey, that's me. And I'm different than my friend over here. It's almost like when you look at a photograph that was taken of you, and like a whole group photograph, and you're able to go, oh, look, there I am. That's self-awareness. It's the ability to know that that's me, and I'm different than the others. But for our purpose, for our intention here during this series, we want self-awareness to mean something a little bit different than that. You see, it goes beyond the idea that we know that we're separate from others, that we know that we're our own individual person. For us, the idea of self-awareness goes to that level where we know that we're separate. We know that we're an individual, that we're our own unique individual. And because we know that we're separate, we're able to actually look at how we respond in any given situation. So let's go back to that picture I was talking about earlier. I'll give you an example of how this works. So we look at that picture, that group shot of us, and we go, oh, hey, there I am. But how often do we actually stop with, oh, hey, look, that's me? We always take it one step farther, don't we? We look at the picture and go, oh, hey, that's me. Wow, I'm getting old. Or, man, I really put on some weight. You see, we look at that picture and we make a judgment about ourselves based off of what we see. But then we don't stop there, do we? Then we allow our emotions to get involved. And we have an emotional response to the judgment that we just had. We start feeling sad and upset that we're not as young as we once were. Or that we maybe possibly should have not picked up that extra piece of fried chicken last night. So we have that emotional response. And then that emotional response begins to shape how we view the world around us, what we think about ourselves, how we feel about ourselves, what we think other people feel about us or see about us. You see, this practice of self-awareness is about being aware that you have that emotion and being aware of what triggered that response within you. I think of something that I went through when I first started exploring this idea of going into ministry and becoming a minister. What I noticed was that every time I would find myself in a situation where I was discussing anything spiritual, if I had to pray with somebody or if I had to just have a dialogue with somebody, I'd get this kind of nervous feeling in my stomach. And I couldn't figure out why, what it was that gave me that feeling. And so thanks to Robert and his gentle shredding and replacing of me, what I realized is that it related back to an experience I had when I was very, very young. You see, what I realized had happened is that my grandmother was a very important person in my spiritual life. And we would have conversations, and what she would tell me was that your spiritual path is yours. It's not anybody else's, it's yours. It's your own private path. And so you don't go out and share, you don't really try to push it on other people. You just let that be yours. Well, I took that to mean that when stuff that you start talking about God and spirituality comes up, you just have to be careful. So anytime we'd start talking about God, I'd get that nervous feeling in the pit of my stomach because I had taught myself that you don't discuss this in a group. Now, looking back on it, I realized that, this was her wanting me to have respect for other people's beliefs. It was also probably her attempt to head off a call from the principal when I told the Baptist kid sitting next to me that he was the Christ, and so was I. But yet in my mind, I'd made it into something else. And that's what this practice of self-awareness is all about. It's about seeing those moments when you respond, and usually it's a physical response, you can feel it. And then asking yourself, well, why did I do that? And then allowing that answer to come to you without judgment, and then go, well, now that's interesting. Why do I feel that way? And you just kind of follow the rabbit down the rabbit hole until you get an insight. an insight into why you respond the way you do, what sort of defense mechanism that you're putting out to protect yourself. And then once you've had that insight, what it allows you to decide is this something that still serves me? Is this something that's still a valuable part of who I am, or can I let this go? So we're going to have an opportunity to practice self-awareness here in just a bit. But before we do that, there are a few things that I just want you to know are going to happen as you begin this practice and this process of self-awareness. I think a lot of times when we're doing this sort of spiritual work, we kind of sit and wonder, am I doing this right? What should be going on? Maybe I'm not doing this right. And then that doubt creeps in. And once we start doubting if we're doing anything right, then we're just off in the weeds. And so let me just tell you what it is that you'll be looking for. Because there are three changes you'll notice in your life as you become more and more self-aware. The first change is that those projections that we put out into the world, the things that we're aware of that we're putting out into the world, we notice we stop doing that as much. Now, these are things we're aware of. So, like, for example, I know that Costco on Saturday is a very frightening place to go. Hell hath no fury like Costco on a Saturday. And so every time I go, I'm driving and going, why am I doing this to myself? You know, Monday's your day off. You can go on Monday. But those are projections I'm putting out into the world. And so this practice of self-awareness helps me to go, well, why am I projecting that out into the world? So you become aware of the things that you already know you're telling yourself about the way you experience the world. The second thing that's going to happen to you, and this is the one to really watch out for, is those things that you've been running from for a long time. Those things that you know that you do, you know you respond to people in this certain way, but you like to ignore that this is how you respond to people. Those are going to start showing up for you to deal with. And as you do that self-awareness work and start asking yourself, why? Why do I do this? Why do I respond in anger? Why do I respond with this fear or this need to run? Know that the experiences that you had that taught you to defend yourself in that way are going to show up for you to heal. It is a wonderfully healing thing to have happen. It is also not very comfortable. There's a reason we've been ignoring those things for so long. It's because a lot of times it's easier to deal with our defense mechanism than it is to deal with the pain that caused us to have that defense mechanism in the first place. So please know that as those things come up, if you start experiencing some emotional pain, some pain from something that you thought you'd healed a long time ago, know that this ministry is here to support you. This ministry has spiritual counselors that are available to help you work through that pain. This ministry has a ministerial staff that's here to help support you. We have prayer chaplains. Don't just allow that sort of pain that comes up, just, oh, there's nothing I can do about it. It heals. It's okay. Seek out the resources to help you move through that. You know, we build up these defense mechanisms, and we're no different than this thing. We have all these little buttons, these little programs all over us. And all it takes is that one person that knows exactly where that button is and how to push it. And then that program starts loading with the anger, the resentment, the sadness. All of that starts coming up and it just plays out. What this practice of self-awareness does is help you identify where those programs are hiding within you, so that you're able to heal them, to move forward from them. And the last thing that'll happen as you begin this journey of radical self-awareness is that you're going to connect more with the presence of God within you. You naturally, as you let go of those beliefs that tell you that you need to look outside of yourself for happiness, for wealth, for prosperity, you'll begin to remind yourself that true happiness comes from the presence of God within. It's great to have the stuff in the world around you, but the true happiness comes from that nature of God, the Christ presence within you. And so as you begin to let go of those things that you're projecting onto the world that tell you this is how the world is, you begin to remember the truth that you are forever connected to that divine source, that origin within you. And so we're going to have an opportunity now to practice self-awareness, to go through a self-awareness practice. And in the book, Robert actually talks about two different types of practices. There's an informal practice and there's a formal practice. The informal practice is to simply be aware. Be aware in and out your day and throughout your day. As stuff happens, just notice it, don't judge it, and notice how you're feeling and move on. That's the informal practice, and he has all sorts of tips in the book for how you put that into play. But the practice we're going to do today is the formal practice. And we're actually going to do that in a time of meditation. So I'll let you get comfortable for meditation. I'm going to get myself comfortable. We'll move this chair up here. And if it is comfortable for you to go ahead and just close your eyes. And as you do, we focus on the breath, on our breath, on breathing in, on breathing out. Focusing only on the breath. As other thoughts begin to arise, as our mind wanders, we just gently return to our breathing. And now we allow our attention to shift into our body, becoming aware of feeling sensations in our body and in the room around us. We allow those awarenesses to play across our minds. And if one of those awarenesses should cause our mind to wander away from focus on our body, we simply return to our breathing, focusing that attention back on our breath in and out. As our time here continues, we may notice emotions, feelings that bubble their way up to the surface. And as they do, we simply become present to them. We don't attempt to ignore them, but at the same time, we don't allow them to entangle us. We don't get involved with them. We simply notice them. And we notice the experience we have in our body as a result of their arrival. And so as our awareness begins to return to this time, to this place, we allow our hearts to fill with gratitude. Gratitude for seeds that were planted. Gratitude for new awarenesses and insights that we had. Gratitude for the knowledge that as we focus on the light of God that is within us, that we see that light of God begin to grow stronger and stronger, brighter and brighter, until we realize that we are that light. We are the light that shines into the world. We are the light of the Christ. We are the very origin of the power and presence of God. And so we give thanks for the many ways that we shine our light in this world. And so it is. I'll see you next week. God bless you.
Says your wish is my command. I have hope, so I open up my hands. I have hope, so I open up my hands. I don't know how, but I allow, and the universe says your wish is my command. What I want to have and do and be is living here inside of me. My heart says yes, come on, let's go, 'cause you know, and I know, yes I know. Is my command. Yo, look out, I'm gonna rap. So here's a little story about what happened to me. I said, okay, I'll believe. I'm gonna trust. I'm gonna let go, quit pushing upstream and go with the flow. What I want to have and do and be. I'm a magnet, it's all coming right to me. I open the mail, here's some money. I meet myself a sweet new honey. Started to enjoy my exercise. Work showed up in the blink of an eye. Not to mention, as I'm flowing along, I also got this song. What I want to have and do and be is living here inside of me. My heart says yes, come on, let's go, 'cause you know, and I know, yes I know. I wanna shine, it's the life that I have planned. I Best band in the country, I'm telling you.